Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear honorable judges and audiences, all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His countless blessings to humankind. May salat and salam be upon our holy prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. My name is Nadira Azrina from SMA BAYAN PUTRI SELABINTANA. On today's upbringing topic of identity, I would like to talk about the search and curiosity of identity itself, which is self-awareness of an identity in the modern world. Self-awareness is defined by a soulful action that allows an individual to develop a complex sense of being that constructs a personal identity. An identity is a vital part of someone's sense of being. It visualizes a characteristic, a personality, and a perspective. The shaping of an identity requires a certain amount of time and attention, as we need it to present ourselves to others. It can be thought of in desired ways. But identities can change over time, as people confront new challenges and tackle different experiences. A person could unintentionally make a commitment to an identity without any attempts to exploring their own identity. In another case, a person could also be active in exploring different identities, but couldn't bring themselves to commit to it. Both of these situations concludes an identity crisis. An identity crisis is a time of intensive analysis and exploration of different ways one can look at themselves. The modern world drives humans to make an instant, rapid, and frontal decisions to make for the flow of life. The shaping of an identity is surely threatened at its cause. As teenagers in the modern world, we are faced with the fears of the unknown future, and the world and its fast and frontal decisions doesn't give us much time to consider the true form of our identity. We're occupied with the thoughts of our future, how and what others think about us. Most teenagers facing this problem couldn't figure out the source of the problem, or rather think about it as a problem for themselves to grow out of their childhood phase. They will eventually form a sense of doubt, confusion, disbelief, and outrage. Some would even say identity crisis had taken away their childhood dreams. In a scientific point of view, identity crisis distresses a cognitive ability of a person. So, shouldn't modern world problems be solved in a modern way? Unfortunately, identity crisis is not a modern world problem. Identity crisis has been going on for centuries, but the factors of the modern world adaptations made the problem much more complex and constructive. Most people experience identity crisis in the points of a great change, whether it is internally or externally. Some would try to suppress the distresses of an identity crisis, but suppressing them would only make them much more worse. Suppressing the problems of an identity crisis will make them much more complicated. Teenagers who suppress the senses of an identity crisis are much more likely to experience a rough midlife crisis. Identity crisis triggers the cognitive ability of a person, which is important to endure creativity, prolongs intellectual capacity, decision-making, and most importantly, character growth. Our job as youth reformers is to take care of the world progression and the growth of human civilization through the years. We will eventually be decision makers, and we will be responsible for what we have chosen. And within any of those decisions, a commitment must be made. Shaping an identity may be complicated, but genuinely shaping it endures a strong commitment to the identity. As for the time being, the questions like, who am I? What kind of person should I be? How will I become through the years? Have the answers that only us can decide. Striving a goal may be relieving, but the outcomes of the human being will become will change us entirely. A sudden change and adaptations are the main factors to an identity crisis. When the outcomes are unlikely, we are bound to feel the senses of an identity crisis. Fortunately, when being solved with the presence of mind, we can cope them ourselves. There is a good reason to overcome an identity crisis. By making a strong commitment, we will lead ourselves to a much happier and brighter future. We can then consider the goals we have set. It is important to consider reaping what we will sow. People who have goals that are praised by results tend to reap the results that they only believe in truly, which means that it is harder for them to accept themselves into change. In which people who have goals that are praised by identity would tend to reap the results that change them entirely. They fully accept themselves in any situation they jump in. Consider our goals to make ourselves for the better. And don't only set goals for the hype. Remember that identities change over time, and it's our decision to make for the better. We shouldn't compare ourselves to the being in the unknown. It is too far to understand beyond it. Exploring ourselves to different perspectives would help us go through an adaptations of a change. Our identities doesn't always define ourselves, but we can add certain roles through the years. Do not let doubt, confusion, and the fears of the unknown completely distress us, as it will affect the decisions we make. A strong social support network is a great way for your mental well-being, and also can be a great way to gain feedback and encouragement we need to be comfortable with our own identity. The more we are self-aware with our presence of mind, we are likely to build a strong commitment to our identity. Focus on the habits we usually do. The tiny habits we make to be comfortable with ourselves will drive us to a much clearer result. Consider looking within to figure out the qualities and characteristics that define you and make you feel grounded and happy, as well as your interests, values, hobbies, and passions. Nourishing our soul with something we like will help us break from the doubt. Dwelling the problem makes us miss out with the development of ourselves in the present. The modern world offers a lot of entertainments, motivations, and inspirations we could easily follow. We have the most freedom in our minds, but we have the most devotion in our future, and also in this reality. Let's guide our identity to a brighter future. Thank you for listening to my speech. I'm Nadira Azrina from SMA PUTRI SELABINTANA. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.